Alrighty, I am back. Announcer bot has been covering, but here we are, ready for another week. Let me get the stream shared up for the guys in the Discord. I'm sure we'll see Josh Fulton join us in a little bit, as we already have 11 racers on the grid out of only 23 going to be permitted tonight. It's a first come, first serve basis, as it is a Kunos track, so things are a little bit limited. Let's get a look at what Zad Ducks has going on as we make our way through Campbell Castle number 2. Checking things out here today. This is going to be absolutely a stellar competition, and you'll see why in just a moment if you haven't been paying attention. I should actually share the link so people can know that we're going, but here we go. So you see now they've entered a cobblestone section through the final couple corners. You have to get sideways. Zadux is on the right trail there for that final stretch. And then you also have to kind of maintain that for the way around. Let's see if we can get back to ourselves here, and I'll try and share a setup for some of these guys. Well, I don't know what car we ended up in. We could really be anywhere on the pit. Of course, we're right at the end. So let me see if I could just help these guys out in that regard. Maybe a saved setup. All right, looks like we were able to share that, so that's pretty good. We'll pass our wisdom on and see if that helps anybody out. As my personal best in the shifter carts around this is a 51.009. It does involve a lot of luck and strength, and a lot of sideways nature on the car, but it's doable. We're also going to dial things in and see if just where the tires lie throughout the stream. So I'm sure there are going to be some differences in the compounds used and all of that. Looks like we've already got some guys having some fun here with this combo, so always exciting to see everybody shaking out and having some fun. Glad that seems to be where we're at today. I'm curious to see where all the times lie. I mean, we've seen some people have done, well, I got one guy who's done 82 practice laps on the server. See a couple guys with 44, 49. Remember, it's about a minute a lap, so that is dedication. People are really trying here today to get some really solid lap times in and the whole 9. As we see somebody who I think was familiar with a different layout of Highlands, as Scrub moves forward, although they've already done a couple laps, so I think maybe they were just trying to get out of the way of the car behind on their outlap. And it looks like Brett Anderson on one as well. So let's stick with Brett for a second, since he's got a pretty quick time. We'll talk about the lap. We'll talk about the ins and outs of this short track in these karts. This right here is one of the tough turns because you have a lot of traction and you suddenly lose it right at the tail end of the turn. So you have to be finished turning and already accelerating straight. This one into the start-finish straight, you want to be going very wide. And this is the tricky one. You really need to carry as much speed and momentum as possible, the way Brett just did to carry through that turn. And this is the deciding factor. You can actually, I was going to say, hug that real close and ride that curb. So Brett on the money with the moves. It looks like the acceleration might be part of the issue. The shifting point in these cars is definitely a funky one. And there's a little bit of a draft. So I will admit, I'm sure a draft came into play somewhere along the stretch, maybe even back here, as this final corner is one you can really fly through as well. Brett pushing it just a little too hard in, and that's going to hurt him into Campbell Castle as well. So we'll jump back on with Scrub and see what Scrub's got capable of. Certainly excited for the event today. I'm going to see if my co-hosts will be joining me. So we'll get up to that in just a second here. Ooh, as you see, Scrub kind of weaseling his way around. I know Josh will be on at some point. He had already checked in, so I'm just trying to see if we can get our guest broadcast in for tonight, but no promises there. As Scrub comes ripping around the corner, well up on their time, currently looking at somewhere in the 53s, maybe even the 52s if they can carry these final corners cleanly. And with a decent line, not really using too much of the track, still manages to come across with that 54. So I think taking things a little bit wider might have opened up the door to that 53 they were on the tail end of. Clutch taking it just a little bit wide. That does hurt your time going on to those barriers, so you don't want to use them too much, kind of just sparingly. But a nice short looking line through turns 3 and 4. I guess turns 2 and 3. This Clutch looking to catch up to a little bit of the pack in front, so Clutch now looking to get in the mix of Deadly Daniel and Brett Anderson, those two sharing a nearly unique time. So that'll make things very interesting to see along the way. These shifter cars really are something else, though. As you can see, a lot of trust and pace coming through here. And these are all just one car at a time. The real challenge is going to come to when we see a few of these cars trying to go through a couple of turns together, as it looks like we may have a little bit further apart, as left sink handle currently just got passed by Jump Raven, but the two of them close enough together with the third car not too far ahead, so might see some fun happening from their combination as well. Let me take a look and see just what we're in for as far as timing goes. So it's only a 15-minute qualifying today and 2 20-minute races. So back to the normal schedule, no extended qualifying, which is probably for the best given how quick these lap times can come through. You missed a 0, guys. 300 member challenge. We did miss a 0, and it looks like the server's calling it the 300. Milestone's a milestone. Oh, look at that. I almost missed out on some fun up ahead as we got 2 Beyblades going. Wow, that's a little bit of a 5-man. As one car gets caught up in the mix, looks like Jump Raven and Mad Max will be the ones spun out of the pack. But these guys further ahead are going to get a solid chance to test out the track. Oh, actually, it's Jump Raven ahead. He wasn't one of the 2 that spun. But it did make contact. Oh, as we've got 2 cars out now. And only left sink handle remains. And these were the 2 that actually started that pack, the 2 that drew our attention to it in the first place. So some clear signs of consistency there. That's a pretty good sign for the race for them. Although, as I say, that broadcaster's curse does what it does best, and Jump Raven will fall a little bit further back. Brett Anderson now shaving off about another 10th. Puts the ball back over to Deadly Daniel to respond, and the rest of the grid to even creep close. 17 racers on out of the 23 entries. Things are filling up extremely quickly here today. We'll jump on with Mad Max, one of the newer names on the field, one I haven't seen personally. You can see a handful of them tonight as we are still going through our 3,000 member celebration. Tonight's race, one of 3 that gains you tickets and raffles, or basically raffle tickets into the giveaway for the week. Right now, we've completed the first event, which was a multi-class MX-5 and GT3 race at Laguna. Today, the EU race already happened, and now we've got the NA shifter kart race. And Friday, we finished things off with another MX-5 and GT3 class, different GT3s at Watkins Glen. So things to look forward to here. But first, we've got 30 minutes left of practice followed by 15 minutes of qualifying. So plenty of laps standing between us and the race. We'll see who we can get to make their way out to us along the way. So Mad Max on a pretty decent lap, going to see some improvement, probably going to get into that 53s. Wow, who's coming through with this much pace? HMG, still looking for a hot lap. And I think they're on an out lap currently, so they might have had a big spin the first time around. Looks like we've got some more going, so we'll share that real quick. Let's see if that helps anybody. It's very loose. And I'll be honest, that 51.009 was not recent. I don't think we've done this combination in probably at least a year. So I'm not going to sit around and claim that I could do that today without a tow. Although Brett Anderson seems to have found that line, so maybe that line's still out there. It might be the one to watch out for, as we see plenty of racers getting eaten up by this turn into the cobble. So let's park up for a second and see how some of these other guys fare right now. I believe that was the Ducks that we had, and then Aaron. Oh my God, there's too much going on. It's hard to see at the moment, but you can watch as they enter in. Sorry, let me not block it with the standings. That might be a better view for you. And you can really see just how tricky this turn is. Look at all the different lines coming through. Everybody's slowing up, trying to hold on before making their way into the cobble. They really enter it with a ton of speed. You have to have conviction in order to make something work. That is the only chance you have. This little section right here that you see is probably the only part of today's race that matters, which I hate to say, but it's true. You got to make it through here and then all the way obviously down the start finish straight. Oop, as the house goes shaking on us. What we see is Ducks getting chased down by Clutch Russ. So let's see if Clutch Russ can turn this into a little bit of a proper practice. I've been looking for bunching up on the live timings, but I haven't caught any just yet. Don't forget the map does update itself when it turns into the next session. So we'll see a few more of the names pop on. Ooh, as Clutch Russ has a little bit of an incident, but just an incident with Ducks. Getting a left sync handle a chance to fly on through. Ooh, on a little bit of hot lap. So with a 52.2, this could be a good chance to break into those 51, show that they're competitive for them podium spots. Right now it looks like the lead spot might belong to Brett Anderson as he has cracked the line. But we'll see what the other racers are able to come up with here over these next 26 minutes. The nice thing about this livery pack is it has this shifter cart pack is it's got a wide variety of liveries, so we'll be able to get some distinction between the racers on the grid. I actually didn't even notice, but most of the icons do a decent job of showing exactly what color the cars should be and stuff, so that might help me out. This is the left sync, takes a bit of a slower line. I think curious to see what Gandhi had going on. And I'm pretty sure Gandhi was just trying to stay out of the way. Yeah, Gandhi's just looking for a little bit of an outlap here. Just driving in peace as we see Deadly Daniel and Jump Raven, the two trying to figure out where Brett Anderson's found all that time, pushing into the final 25 minutes of practice here. It's a good amount of time, but still. You start to get nervous when you have almost a full second to find, over a full second in Jump Raven's case. But he'll shave a little bit off now, almost 3/10 down, so he'll move up to second place and creep closer to Brett Anderson, who's got a purple sector 1 and 3 on that hot lap. So That's going to be where all the time is remain as we see someone going flying down the track. That's going to be Zed Ducks, who must have had a big incident into turn one. Thankfully, the stewards team out quick to get them back over into the pits. Did not get to see what caused that contact, but I will tell you, scary moment. Glad to see the racer is okay and able to continue in tonight's practice. And it's going to be a big testament to just the safety technology improvements that have come into shifter karts over the years. I mean, I know it doesn't look like much, but if a racer can survive that and the kart good enough to continue driving, well, that is a real shout out to the manufacturers. Would I suggest trying this with your own kart at home in real life? Perhaps not, but these specific karts in this specific circumstance held up phenomenally. Speaking of phenomenal, let's see what HMG's got in the tank. They've been creeping around that 52.6 for a little while. They need to shave off some time, and oh, it looks like the line that they wanted was immediately taken by a car coming out of the pits. That's going to be Zadux in the 27, causing a little bit of what I'd imagine to be frustration, and there goes the rest of the lap. Brett Anderson comes out on his own out lap, whizzing through to get by the pack, and HMG will have to reset for another one. Brett, desperate to stay ahead, as he knows he's only got a little bit of space between himself and the next group. Oh, as those two racers send each other into the wall. We're going to consider HMG to be one of the unluckier cars in the last few minutes of coverage. But let's jump back to someone who is at least moving forward on the grid here. That's Deadly Daniel. Does not seem to be getting caught up in any incidents. So luck on Daniel's side for the moment. Definition luck. That is not a dig at HMG. If you guys were watching what I was watching, that was just misfortune left, right, and center. Deadly Daniel, though, now pushing on his own hot lap, looking to get back ahead of Jump Raven and find that near second to Brett Anderson ahead. Looks like Sector 1 is not going to go the way that they were hoping, so they'll have to clean things up in Sectors 2 and 3. And it's really these runs into the long straights that are key. You can tell they made up a little bit of time there, but not enough. They'll have to get a real clean line through here in towards the final part of Campbell Castle. And into the start-finish straight, which just no time to be found there. It looked like a pretty clean lap. It looks like their line was good, but something about that way that Brett was taking the through at the corners, these guys just have a little bit more to figure out. And oh, Deadly Daniel takes flight. The kart tries to hang on, but does end up flipping ultimately, creating what else but a little bit of havoc. Jump now to Tougher Racer, which are representing the number 44 Great Britain Racer. Look at those rear wheels in action. Sure, some of our guys from across the pond were happy to be in this one during the EU event. Now I see quite a few racers creeping into that competitive range. Clutch Russ now with a 51.8. I am going to give it to Left Sink Handle with a 52.2, because with the consistency we're seeing out here, that'll keep you close enough. And honestly, not a lot of time separating the whole grid. But speaking of time, Clutch Russ goes to the top of the board with a 50.8, a 13.9 for Sector 1, whereas most races are in around a 14.2, 14.3 range in the top. And they already started their second lap, so I didn't get to see what the purple Sector 3 was. But they had a personal best. Sector 2 was not enough to take the purple. Excellent lap from Clutch Russ. That's going to be getting Brett Anderson back into the zone here. We'll see what Brett is able to come up with, but we're jumping on with Speed Bump, who's sitting at a 52.9 for the minute. It's going to need to find a little bit of a smooth way through. You can see that's a huge bit of time gained just off of a couple corners, so we jumped on at the right moment. Already we're looking at Speed Bump joining that 51 squad. If they can hold strong through these final few turns, it's this one right here. This has been the killer for everybody's lap. Speed has the line, lost a little bit of speed, but not too much. And I think it's going to carry through at least a solid enough lap to get up to P6. Okay, I was going to say top 5, but didn't get that final 10th off to left sync handle. Don't see a lot of racers in the voice chat, so not a lot of communication going on between them. Let's jump back with Mr. Ho 2006, currently 13 seconds up on his time, so cleaning this one out would be a competitive lap, pushing them somewhere, I think, even into the 52s. Let's see if they can clean this up right here. I'm assuming that Ho is struggling with this corner, as that is a tight line in, but they hold on. Ah, almost. It looks like they saw the car and it changed their commitment to the corner, and that'll do it. Let's see what Alan Montes is capable as he heads out into another hot lap. Only 400s away from Gandhi, already holding off the top 10, but can he creep a little bit further? That's going to be the name of the game for all these guys today. As we keep things moving, that number 73 car holding on for grip, lost about half a second. It's going to be not the best spot to lose it in. Plenty of time to find over the next 2 sectors by the look of the overall lap time. We'll see if we can maybe make something happen with a strong turn. I feel like you're hearing a little bit more hesitation into that turn than we typically do. And we're not seeing a lot of time improvement. Oh, and you see a little bit of a spin. These cobblestones are nobody's friend tonight. It is honestly really entertaining to watch, and I don't feel too bad, but it's got to be a little bit frustrating for some of these guys really chasing that top pack. They're getting close, and just one bad spin, especially through that cobblestone roundabout, is going to do you in. I also tried to draw this track from memory and did not do a very good job because I was thinking about the wide out part from the drift layout, but this does not have that, funny enough. What it does have are some very long drift or bike lanes on the side, which I would imagine if you're doing the drift layout probably are some sweet points to hang it out in. As speed starts to lap very strong, but maybe a little too strong. Yeah, as we gun it into Beyblade mode, heading across turn 1, but we'll jump back on with Alan in the Banana Racer as he swings through 2 and 3. Looking to put up a little bit of time if he can. No major packs forming just yet. Everybody's been pretty good about giving each other the space, but they're at least staying close enough to allow us to jump from one to the other. Left sync handle with a big jump on the Delta heading into Sector 3. This could be interesting, could be enough to break into the 51s, which I know has been the goal. You saw Speed Bump miss it by just about a 10th. Oh, and Left Sync knows they're not going to have it in the tank around that final corner and has to withdraw. They've got plenty of time, at least enough for 15 consecutive laps if they head out right now, maybe even 16 before the overtime. Actually, definitely 16, possibly more before the overtime. Oh, as we are just giving everybody broadcaster's curse today. I feel like I'm doing a hammer of a job on that. As we see 2 coming down. Oh, and it looks like the draft just a little bit too much for Gandhi. Tato Tot, as he gets right up to the back of Gandhi and isn't able to hang on. These cars do have a little bit of aero to them. You got to be careful. That's not a great spot. Oh, as you see chaos as all the cars trying to make their way around. 3 cars make it through, so we'll hang on to Bot Lando here in the back of this pat. I think further up ahead we've got Speed Bump and Jump Raven. So these are 3 relatively quick racers. Bot Lando still looking to find that pace over the course of the laps here. But man, you can just see it where Speed Bump and Diddley Daniel have gone to. Bot Lando hanging it out in that 5th gear, not going up into 6th, which I thought a lot of these guys were doing, but could be wrong. We see one racer has disconnected, giving himself a little bit of a scare as that line, everybody ducks over so quick to be on that outside lane, and it gets a little hairy when you've got cars coming out of the pits. Speaking of hairy, though, I do want to see this side-by-side between two racers who are trying to send a message to Brett and Clutch Russ that they are not alone. And it looks like they're going to be doing a little bit of slingshotting to try and get there. Oh, his speed gets the nudge. That's going to mess up both of their times. But this is honestly what practice is for. You need to see how you can push the karts with another guy in your line and how much rubbing you can get away with without messing the other guy's race up. And that curve did him in. So that'll be the end of that small grouping. We're going to jump over to Tater. Oh, just as he struggles a little bit to make it around that bend, maybe we'll jump over to Brett Anderson chasing down HMG. And I cannot see who the other car is from this distance. But thankfully they've burst into the wall. And I'm going to say that was Mr. Ho as it pops up on the live timing. So outlap done for Brett Anderson. HMG gonna have a rough entry into this hot lap, given the little bit of a spin just one turn before the start finish. And you can see Brett really hanging it all out there, just pushing as hard as they can to see what's possible. Looks like I'm gonna Brett now pushing a second off of his time. So there's something in that first sector that you really need to string together in order to have a hot lap. I mean, that huge difference doesn't come from what we were just seeing. And I want to say it's from the two cobblestone corners. You have to get a nice line through both of them, as close to the limits as you can. And you can see that doesn't necessarily work out for someone. Oh, as we've got a little bit of chaos here as everybody tries to rejoin. Not entirely positive what we just watched, but that certainly was something. We are on the lookout for any malicious behavior of shorts, just to see if anybody needs to be reminded of the shape of Italy, but we haven't seen anything malicious. It's all been just tight incidents, because there is not a huge line to go from, as Mr. Ho desperately trying to get out of the way. Those tires are going to be hot heading into the cobblestone, which you cannot cool them at all, and Jumper even gets clipped in the process. Just going to bring himself right into pits there, as he knows his goose is cooked for the time being. Let's jump up to Brett Anderson, though, who finds himself in another peculiar situation. 3 cars once more. Looks like the spinning car out in front was able to send it to the pits. Oh, as we've got a little bit of a netcode situation for just a minute. Both racers able to carry on, and no major contact made up until that moment right there with the wall. We're going to jump a little bit further back, this time over to HMG, trying to make his way around the grid. It's just chaos. It basically is a glorified bumper karts at this point, as we have now hit 22 out of 23 permitted racers in the event. I do worry about the amount of unfamiliar names. I am very hopeful that the majority of them are in the Discord, but, well, if not, then we'll go for the raffle. That'll open up some lines for the raffle, as we see someone get a nice Beyblade rotation going a little further in the track, and bumper karts away here at the end of turn 1. So that's going to be the interesting thing for this big pack, right? Up at the front, these guys, if they keep things clean, keep things consistent, they'll be able to break away from the chaos early. But it's only a 50-second lap, and the chaos seems to be costing people about 10 seconds. And with the frequency of all of these spins, I mean, these guys are going to be lapping people about 5 minutes in. And that is not what you really want on a track like this, to have to worry about blue flag moments with cars that are already struggling on stability. Because you end up with stuff like that. I mean, there's no way to get by, and it's nobody's fault. It's just some incidents. Eight minutes and 50 seconds remaining until we officially kick things off here. Jump around at a few more, see where, yeah. See a little bit of bumping and grinding here as two more racers just trying to get by, set in some clean laps together. These are definitely some tough and trying times, as we see 95 laps from one of our racers on the grid currently of practice. Absolute incredible dedication, and they definitely are making their way up the grid slowly to show for it. Currently in P15 on the live timings board. Remember, the standings you see in front of you are only for the current practice session, but we do take a look at what people were able to do during the practice server throughout the week. That's why we keep it open, just to see what some of these guys are capable of when all cards are on the table. Taking a look at what seems to be a big group coming out. I'm going to jump over to Bot Lando, because this looks like it'll be a little bit of fun, as we have three racers now heading out together. We'll see what kind of a group they form up, working their way through the track. I mean, this is the practice. This is what really they need to be doing. Hot lapping is great, but how fast can you go when there's chaos around you? How quickly can you react to some of these more dangerous situations at hand? Lando doing a good job. Oh, all right, everybody doing a pretty decent job here of a what. And Jump Raven doing a very good job of carrying through consistently and staying on the track. Currently now P3 overall, still trying to get into those 50s, but 2/10 ahead of Deadly Daniel. And oh, I was gonna say a good chunk away from Speed Bump, who was next to him a moment ago, but there goes Speed up to the 51.4, so starting to unlock those secrets of the track. Again, things are going to be a little bit interesting once we get this full grid going. You're not going to have a ton of space to make time, so for qualifying session, the key is probably going to be to get out early and hope nobody's coming out right as you get around. We see a little bit of self-inflicted wounds there. Hard to see with who. I think that was Nosy, as they have a little bit of a run-in with Broccoli. Nothing intentional, surely, but just an incident on the track. We see that 44 and 33 car battling things out. That's actually a nice little switchback move as the aero wash kicks in for a moment. Ooh, as we've got cars splitting the difference here, doing wheelies, bouncing all over the place. This is a little bit much to keep up with, as it is constant. Well, let's just jump in with Mad Max and see what they're up to for a second. And nope, not going to be an option, as they pull off into, who the hell is that? All right, Fat Con Leet, hope I'm saying that right, is drifting their way through here, full Tokyo Drift style, making things interesting for sure. keep an eye and see how some of these alternative lines are working out. It doesn't look like they're trying to drift things through the corner, but just that little bit of misfortune comes up every now and again. At this point, we've got 3 racers who have come and gone, so still opens the door up for a few more guys. Not a lot, but we'll see if we got any late qualifying joiners as we are getting closer and closer to the end of our practice session here. Now, we figured we didn't want to do too much with the weather or the wind here. This combination seemed to bring its own challenges, and didn't really lend itself to what I would call a surprise party. As Lumayo Gigi makes a little bit of contact with Gandhi there. A lot of times on the board. Right now, I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 racers have not set a clean one. Sorry, 5 have not set a clean one in this session. Although it looks like Broccoli and Nosy will not be joining us for today's event. And neither will Zad Ducks at this time. Still plenty of time remaining until the event. Oh, as we saw a big spin out here through turn 1. I'm just trying to get a sense of how hard some of this is going for the racers. I would imagine the roundabout is where we're seeing a few more of the misfortunate incidents. And of course, as we settle in, that's when everybody wants to have a clean line all of a sudden through these corners. Broadcaster's quarters hit now. All right, we're not gonna do that to anybody else. I didn't realize the power was that strong, so let's just jump on with Jump Raven as they work their way through Campbell Castle towards the roundabout. And I haven't even come up with fake names for the track yet, but obviously at some point I will have to. So this is Campbell Castle 2. Okay, so there's 2 Campbell Castles. Those are at least names. That helps. And then we'll call this the back straight. The wide out. Into the cobbles. Past pit row. I mean, that's an easy one. Always. And turn 1 shall always be turn 1. I know that's Campbell Castle, but we're just going to call it turn 1. Then we got the roundabout. And then the changed my mind. Or into the village. Yeah, into the village feels a little bit nicer. Through the squiggly bit into Campbell Castle too. All right, we got a lap. That's what we're going to call it. You guys are probably not going to love those names, but those are what they are. Is Alan Monte's hanging on with Jump Raven? I didn't even realize that. Maybe even picking up a little bit of a draft, getting through the wide out here, picking up a lot of time. So how is their turn into the cobbles? It's a lot of improvement. It's a ton of improvement. Hang on, Alan, hang on. Oh. And if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. Beyblade mode was activated just nearly at the wrong moment. And Alan has the top 10 hopes stripped away for now. Not for good, but just for now. That would have sucked if that was stuck. Let's do that. Anyway, on with Clutch Raven, who seem to have been suffered a little misfortune on their last lap, but we'll see what happens on this one around. Clutch defending that 50.8. They've been hammering down some relatively consistent laps, hanging close to that 50 mark at the very least. But it looks like they're already off to a rough one. I know you're looking at me, how could you say that so quickly? But there's not a lot of track here. If these guys don't get those first couple of turns perfect, they're not getting into that 50 mark. So we'll bounce around the grid for a little bit as overtime has now begun. It's going to be a shorter overtime, obviously, given the track size and everything, but there will be enough time for these guys to try and squeeze 1 or 2 more laps in, maybe send a message or two about where they believe they should be on the grid. But lucky for them, it's only practice. There you are. There's still that 15-minute qualifying ahead of them, and they will have plenty of time to show just what they have in store. I mean, you guys have seen it before. A lot of these practice times are great, but that qualifying session is where everything matters. Some of these guys currently in that 51 squad might not even get back to it over the course of the next 15 minutes. So I'll be right back in just a minute. Let's see how this overtime wraps up. All right, I am back. Even broadcasters have to pee sometimes. Leave me alone. But looks like the overtime session has ended, and the wait time is officially in countdown mode. So these guys will be heading out for qualifying in just a minute, I'm sure. Let's take a look here and see just how many shifters we've ended up with here on the grid. I mean, that is Karts for miles. Got people saying they have no mirrors. I'm going to assume that's our VR squad, who is only going to have radars to go off of, so that's going to be fun. But let's jump back a little bit and see how things go. I see Brett Anderson already making his way out on the live timings, and we're going to jump over to the roundabout. Oh, he's already in the roundabout, so he is well on his way to be the first one out. Let's see if there's any advantage to that. I mean, it's going to be tough because people are still working their way out of pits. That gap might not open up that he was thinking, but if anyone's going to have a chance, it'll be Brett. And he'll be the only one on a hot lap, so you'll hope the polite things will kick in. Let's see how the strategy works. Right now, Brett and Clutch definitely in the best spot. Time has a good chance to pull a little bit off of Daniel here, but unless he's on the pace, that's going to be interesting for Jump. Brett did not get the entrance into the straightaway I know he was hoping for. It'll come down to a strong remainder of the track. Not sure what he's got sticking out here. Is that like a bone? Looks like he's got some kind of a suspension thing, but that could be on my side. I'm not entirely positive. He's off to a strong start here. It already looks like he's into that 51s. Can he creep back into the 50s on his first hot lap? A little brush up with the wall might say no. Those are the kind of things that will cost you that 10th overall. But plenty of track left, at least for what he's looking to do. Can he keep it clean into the cobbles? Oh, and a big shift here. That's going to unfortunately hurt the chances. Let's jump on with Clutch Russ, who is well up on his time as well. Very strong exit or entrance into the start-finish straight, and goes up to the top with a 51.6. Jump Raven, left sync handle, all joining him in that same pace. So that was a big moment. They've got a lot of space ahead of them. Right now, there's a small gap from Clutch Russ to Alan Monty, as you can't even see that racer in front, so that's going to give Clutch at least one more clean go of it. But Brett Anderson, ooh, managed to find a little bit of a gap to Speed Bump. So we're going to check back in on Brett. Brett on a clean one. Brett is on a clean one now, so we'll see how this shakes up. I see a little bit better momentum into this back straight this time around. So now an extra 10th up to where he was last time. Looking to keep things clean here. Keeps that momentum. Now it's a big turn towards the cobbles. You can see some hesitation after what happened last time. I can't say I blame him. Let's put the clean lap down first. And a little bit more power into the start finish straights than where we began. And it'll at least see him into the 51s. Needs to find that overall second, though, that we saw in the practice times. We're going to jump over now to Speed Bump behind. Speed, no slouch himself. He was in that 51 with a 51.4 during practice. Again, we're not doing too much to the wind, so these guys don't have too much to adjust to between sessions. Trying to keep it simple for them. But we see a little bit of chaos building up ahead. Hopefully it's not going to interfere with Speed's lap. Definitely going to cut off time off of some of the laps from the racers in front. As Brett Anderson, little brush up with the wall. Don't know if that's one of the racers directly ahead. Oh, as we see someone going spinning, that's going to be Tater. Who goes off to the side. Another one this time on the start finish straight, but not enough to get in the way. Speed Bump shaving 2/10 off of their personal best this afternoon with a 51.2. So even if these other guys do get into the high 50s like they did on the last one around, that is more than enough to show that speed is there to pick up the pieces. And we'll see where the consistency lies. So big gap here for Speed Bump, big gap for Tough Racer as well. They're both going to be able to set some nice calm laps in. And you can see that in the full use of the track that they have going on right now. Both racers really pushing to make use of that. We do see a little further back, Jump, Raven, and Deadly Daniel both have built up little gaps of their own. It seems like everybody's in a decent spot. Tough Racer not able to find improvement on this lap. Let's see where Brett lies. On an out lap, that's a big pack in front on an out lap to not try and put a little bit more pace between. But I think Brett's logic is going to be to get by them through turn one. It's going to be interesting because Brett has a ton of pace by comparison. He will have to let off just a little bit, and that change in the line brings him too close to the wall. Not going to be able to make something happen there. We'll jump over with Tougher Racer, who did see improvement on Sector 1. Oh, and it looks like had a moment that called for a teleport to the pits. Jump over to Scrub, though, who's 6/10 up on their time. Let's see if that can do anything special for them. So they're pushing pretty hard through Castle 2. About half a second up, so that brings them closer and closer to a competitive range. I'm gonna guess it's this final turn into the cobbles that really cost them. And yeah, you can see that cart just slipping away from them. Falcon lead going into the wall again, and this time Deadly Daniel's gonna be the one on a hot lap trying to power through, really using a ton of the track. What will we see? A 53.2 to start things off. A little interesting from the guy going in the 51s during practice, but there is a lot of traffic out here. It's hard to find a stretch, like I said, so you never know where that time was lost. And you can see already 8/10 up, so Dan knows where to find that little bit more, that little bit of momentum. We're going to jump over though to HMG, who is in a pretty good spot, currently up on their time. We'll see where the majority of the time was lost. And might have been that start finish straight, because that unfortunately is going to cost them there. Jump over to Time Dialon and see what he can put up this lap. Currently he's holding down the top 10, creeping on the edge of the 52s, and that is a almost full second gap between 10 and 9. So Time going to be trying to work hard to close that gap down, as they are leading the rest of the grid at the moment. 19 racers currently sitting, waiting to head out. We do have Mr. Ho, who has not yet gone for their qualifying laps. We'll jump over in just a minute. Let's see. Scrub seems to be on a little bit of a hot lap here. We'll see if they can hang on. Not a great sector 2, but carries the pace into the back straight and opens up a little bit of opportunity. Can they shave into those 53s here? It's all going to come down to that turn into the cobbles. We saw them struggle with it before, but they found the groove here, shaving a full second off just by committing through. And they don't use as much of the track, so they'll lose a little bit of time compared to their fellow grid drivers, but it's enough to creep past Deadly Daniel and swing into P11, which I gotta say is a pretty phenomenal lap. Let's take a look now at someone really putting up some improvements on their time. Tater was over a second up on their lap at one point, now a half second, so I think sector 3 is where they lost a little bit of time, but just barely shy of enough to get them inside of that 53 marker. So shows potential. What are we watching here with Clutch Rust? Let me try and jump over for a minute. This is very interesting. All right, as whatever was going on seems to have settled itself out. When in doubt, I figured, to check and make sure. We are starting to see a little bit more collisions here and there from some of these other racers. Clutch Russ really hammering down the pace here. Whatever's going on with the ping not affecting the lap time. Oh, I was going to say, man, I really have this broadcaster's curse thing down. But there is absolutely going to be chaos and then some here on turns. Probably 1, maybe 2, 3, 4. I'm going to guess 5, 6, and 7. If I had to guess. So I think that would be 7 altogether. Sorry, that was loud. Man, at this point, I'm just excited for the race to start. I'm not even paying attention to these qualifying times, but I should, because Brett Anderson and Jump Raven are both teetering on the edge. Oh my God. And it looks like he just barely avoids the clotheslining. I'm not sure how, but that's pretty impressive. Let's take a look. Gotta be serious here. Is anybody seeking some improvements? It looks like maybe Left Sync Handle is teetering on the edge and has a little bit of company, so let's see what they can do. As they're only 1.8 seconds off of Jump Raven's time. That's not too bad. That's definitely something you can make up, but it looks like they're more interested in building a slight gap. Oh, or not. It's hard to tell what's going through some of the racers' head today, as everybody is really... There's no correct strategy for a race like this as far as getting your laps in and getting some open track. You just gotta hope for the best, really, and hope that the track kind of clears out in front of you, because you're never gonna start a clear lap. All right, they seem to have figured that out. Just oddities all around. Jump Raven, though, in a pretty prime position, only about a 10th away from their personal best. Had a little bit of a rough turn there through Castle 2, but taking the back straight with relative ease. See how the wideout goes. Unfortunately, not in their favor, and that will be the end of the chance on this lap. 3 minutes and 44 seconds remaining, though. We'll see if their chance stands on the next one. Just to give you a sense of the amount of laps being done, I'd say the majority of the grid has now crossed into double digits as far as qualifying laps, including out laps, actually, now that I'm looking at it. And I'd say there are only 1 or 2 who are less than seven. Actually, there's about 5 who have 7 or less. Wow, excuse my yawn, but excuse that draft. Jump Raven, you could see getting a little bit too much speed, had to let off the throttle. as they're still trying to line up a nice clean draft for their hot lap. I think this is the opportunity they were looking for. They're going to go nice and wide, and it does give them a little bit of speed, so they'll go into the green to start the lap, but will immediately lose traction turn one, and that will be the end of that one. Let's check in now with maybe Tough Racer might be on a clean one. Oop, as he loses some time trying to avoid a little chaos behind. We could also just peek on the roundabout for a minute, see exactly how everybody's dealing with it, because the answer for some seemed to be not particularly well. Yeah, this is definitely going to be the corner to watch out for, as some racers go very wide, some racers take a tight line through, but those lines all intersect. You can see in the tire marks on the floor there, there's a lot of differences to find. So how they deal with that intersection, if they make it to that intersection through turn one, is going to be very interesting to see. But we all get to find out together. Speaking of together, let's check in on these two hammering through the laps right now. Fan Con Leet and Mad Max. Looks like Mad having a little bit of a spin, so Fa will get a chance to work his way through. Now at the 53.765, getting closer and closer to joining that mid pack in the 52s. That goes from P8 all the way down to P15. So it's a very large competitive grouping. And even then, they're pretty close to Gandhi with a 51.9, but Gandhi isn't that far from the rest. So Gandhi kind of the middle marker on the battle up front and the battle behind. But as we saw in the EU race, it'll come down to who actually finishes the race. It doesn't matter so much your pace as it does your survival instincts. We saw the EU winner, I believe, had 20 less collisions than the rest of the grid. Maybe I'm exaggerating. It might be 10 to 15, but definitely double digits, which says a lot on its own. And those collisions do count with the wall. You don't want to spin yourself out. It's not just about what other people are doing to you, quote unquote. To you being relative, of course, but still. Ho with a massive amount of time gain through the wide out and just a little bit too much drifting into the cobbles, but still showing some good improvement. This is probably going to be enough to get Ho into the low 52s, just outside of P10. I swear Broadcaster's Curse is working even when I'm just thinking at the moment, because I was gonna say cracks the top 10, but has 0.02 of a second to go. And here in overtime with a misfortune through turn two, I'm gonna say is not gonna be able to find that pace, but someone who might is Tater, already in the top 10, but looking to jump up to maybe even P7 with a solid final few turns here. Lost it through the wideout, but can he get it back into the cobbles? Starts off relatively strong, needs a little bit more, and loses the traction. Will not be able to make that finish. We will shift over to the auto cam before the race begins and see how some of our other racers go. But you know, overall, that was one hell of an event. I mean, or, well, a qualifying session. We got a close grid in most senses of the word, several packs to go, and we've got a large glimpse at what can only be described as pure chaos. Usually leads to some interesting racing. I'm not going to say good racing. I know how people feel about, you know, what this can present, but certainly interesting. That much we can all agree on. See everybody now talking about the fuel, the tires, the overall race strategy. So that's how you know it's time to dial everything in. We're going to see what brings here as far as the tires go and what they want to do. So as these racers settle in, I did see my co-host get called away, unfortunately, for the evening. So we're going to be soloing this one for the foreseeable future, but that's okay because there's only a short track to cover. So it's going to be hard to miss what's going on, especially when there's going to be so much chaos. You know, the race will speak for itself, surely, looking at just what's going on today in practice and qualifying, not even counting what we unfortunately were not able to broadcast for the EU guys today. So that will be something else. The wait time, though, coming down to a close here in just a minute, and that'll begin our final 60-second countdown to the race, where we can check out our starting grid. I do regret not putting it at night, but I don't know if there's streetlights on this track. So I'm going to say that's a good risk that we didn't take, just for the sake of not taking that risk. But let's go over our starting grid. So up front, to lead us off on this very, very busy one, we've got Brett Anderson, followed by Jump Raven, Speed Bump, Left Sync Handle, Clutch Russ, Bot Lando, Gandhi, Montez, Tater, Tough Racer, Ho, Daniel, HMG, Mad Max, Time, Aaron, Scrub. We're just going to call him Fa, Lameo, Barres, Marius, McCart to wrap things up in the back. Looks like we did have a few racers who worked with us throughout the practice and the qualifying not make it into today's event. But at this point, the grid is set, the lights are on, and just like that, we are ready to rumble. And we've already got a false start in the back of the grid. Not sure exactly who. Looks like Marcus McCarthy is going to have a drive-through penalty. Hopefully he manages to take it. Brett gets overtaken off the jump by Jump Raven. Speed Bump tries to capitalize with him and will be able to, following a brush up with the wall. And here comes the battering ram. Half the grid taken out, probably 3/4 of the grid taken out. And Brett Anderson, lucky, turns around, and someone else ends up pretty lucky in the mix. Who was that? That's going to be HMG, I think, who manages to flip and land right side up and continue racing. So that is going to be our big separation. You can see the 4-second mark in the pack. Bot Lando now gets ahead of HMG through a good one, but let's look further up. So Jump Raven here has made his way back around to finish lap 1, followed by Speed Bump, Clutch Russ, and there's your chaos grouping to Gandhi. And then we've got a little bit more going on in the back. So Time, Ho, Aaron, Mad Max, Lameo. You can see Aaron and Scrub battling it out right there in front of you. A little bit further, we've got Barres, all trying to avoid what looks like a little bit of chaos here. Ooh, in the start-finish straight, and a very interesting teleport to pits right off the bat there. I think Barres is going to retire the car, and Marcus Smart might lose the lap to the grid in front. And I think that might be a resident of the drive-through. We're going to look a little bit further up, though. See Bot Lando and HMG on that same battle. I know we've got cars spinning out left, right, and center. We're trying to keep up with it, but there's a lot of close racing going on too. So we want to cover the racing a little bit more than the carnage. I know that's what everyone wants to see, but this is battling for position right now. Bot Lando and HMG really doing a good job of keeping things clean and working their way together back up to the battle for the top 5. They need to close in on Jump Raven and Speed Bump somehow, maybe hope for a little bit chaos to come their way. Bot Lando sneaking around the inside, gets past HMG, and is going to pick up another position to Scrub, who had a run-in with the wall. HMG trying to use that same advantage and does manage to make it through with a little bit more speed. We see, I think, Left Sync Handle maybe, and HMG both get spun up following a little collision with each other, trying to avoid, I think it was Mr. Ho, who ended up retiring the car in that incident. Alan Monte's a little bit further back, looking to catch up. I see a 3-way battle somewhere over here. It looks like we've got cars that were all sorts of collisions flipped out on each other, and they will unfortunately have to get to pits and get back out on the track. So tough scenes all around. A lot of cars getting retired, starting a lap, maybe even 2 laps back. Marcus McCarthy hopefully taking that drive-through penalty. We didn't see it, but it looks like with the state back that he's in, I'm going to assume so. As definitely a pit will lose you a lot of time throughout here. HMG, though, trying to get back up to some of the racers in front. Alan Montes looks like it's going to get past Scrub, as Scrub may have been witness to unfortunate scenes for Gandhi, who finds himself a little bit further back now in P8. Again, very difficult to keep up with all of the carnage. I highly suggest checking into the live timings so you can see how many collisions are really popping off. It is an endless flow as we see tire marks in front. That's going to be Marius McCarthy, who's going to go for a dangerous rejoin. Oh my God, and that's going to cause additional chaos behind. HMG and left sink handle nearly taken out in the mix. As it looks like Marcus has maybe gotten a little bit unruly, so we are unfortunately going to have to remove them from today's events. And go from there. Now back to the action in front. Left sink handle trying to work their way a little further up. We do apologize to the racers caught up in Marius's shenanigans. But unfortunately, it's just not something that we can go with when it's causing that much chaos to those around. We've got a nice 3-man battle here, all again trying to work their way up, just hoping for a little bit more chaos in front. There's 15 minutes left, and as you can see, there is constant changes in positions all around. That was actually the P1 car of Jump Raven weaseling their way through, almost getting caught up in that. So nobody is safe, not even your leaders here in these chaotic moments of the event. Looks like HMG may have had a little bit of a collision. We weren't able to catch that on our live timings board here as we were dealing with the other situation. But let's jump a little bit further back. Looks like Falcon might have had a little bit of a spin. Now finds himself in a 3-way battle. Oh, avoiding the wheelie, but it will cost himself some fateful time here in the back end. Then ends up clipping, unfortunately, Tater, who is working to get back a little bit further. He's got Lumeo now breathing down his neck. This is not going to be a fun battle for position that he was looking forward to, but one that we are at least excited to see. Mad Max was able to slip by in that moment along with HMG. So those guys will be further up having a little fight of their own. We'll see what Tater can do to hold off Lumeo here as we get closer and closer to this cobblestone section. Lumeo going to take that dive down the inside. Can he hold it? Unfortunately not. That's going to be a little bit of a peril for his race. Tater does have a run-on with the wall though, and will lose the spot to Lumeo now. So that wasn't Lumeo who got spun. As things get a little bit interesting, that might have been one of the similar looking liveries, I guess. Like I said, very hard to keep up with some of the carnage here. Just kicking in though with Mad Max, as he looked like he was going to have an opportunity to get a move on HMG. HMG though looking to get past possibly a lapped car of Aaron. Yes, it is going to be a lapped car, so that's why he's passing with such ease. Aaron not putting up too much of a fight there, but does become a little bit of a hazard as he spins into the barrier. Has to get moving. We are going to jump back though, because these three coming up on Aaron are having a fight of their own. We'll see if that comes into play at all. Lumeo once more breathing down the neck of Mad Max. Lumeo's found themselves in the midst of quite a few interesting battles here tonight, and seems to be coming out on top of the fights. It's a little bit of the self-inflicting wounds following seem to cost them. The patterns are made to be broken, as we see I'm not sure who that was, but someone was off to the side there. Unfortunately, I didn't get a good look. It might have been Falcon, as we see he's fallen a little bit back from Aaron after taking that lead. A quick pass through there for Speed Bump, who is really carrying up some pace. Seems like Speed Bump may have been caught up in an incident though, because they are 20 seconds away from Jump Raven. Clutch Rust though has worked their way well up the grid now, 7.6 seconds back from Jump Raven and climbing. They certainly have the pace to be some sort of a force here. Brett Anderson, we've seen put up some tremendous speed as well. So let's see if he can connect the dots on this next lap and start to close the gap down to Bot Lando in front. Again, lap traffic is going to be the big factor. And speaking of that lap traffic, let's take a look in at Speed Bump trying to get by. Unfortunately, clips the wall, then gets hit by a rejoining car doing a wheelie, then gets hit by an additional car trying to come around the corner, and ends up losing 17.5 seconds to the chaos. We appreciate Speed Bump's sacrifice as he proves our point. Unfortunately, Mr. Ho and Perez have joined the event a little bit late, but they do seem to be having a nice little battle between them. Mr. Ho 1 second back. They are trying to go slow to allow some of this lap traffic to get through. They're being very polite to the battle in front. Oh, as we see a beautiful weave by Facon, but some quick reactions to get through a little bit of chaos on his own. 3 cars working their way down the straightaway together. Let's check in with Brett Anderson though. I was gonna say, because it looked like he was having to avoid some weaving down the straightaway. I saw a couple other cars getting caught in that one, but he manages to work his way in and works his way through and keep moving. Lost 3 seconds there. So again, I think that misfortune is going to be the story of his race today. Let's check over to time. Oh my God, who sends it from Narnia? And it just is misfortunate as Lumeo was there, not able to get out of the way in time, or rather to complete their corner in time. I'm not entirely positive that they would have been able to make that turn, but you know, it was an absolute effort at that time. Now looking to line that back up, this time on Tougher Racer. I see another car in front, but I don't believe that's the car of Alan Montes. I think Alan is just going around the bend a little bit further ahead. You see Clutch Russ has spun out a little further down the grid as we see a double spin right there. Let's check in with Clutch and see how much time he's lost. Plenty, as he is now 21 seconds away from Jump Raven. That's going to give Speed Bump a little bit of life though, as Speed Bump is right here. And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it is a little easy to tell where some of these crashes are coming. Like, I think if I'm going to jump back right now to Tater, we'll see a little bit of a collision happening through the back end. This final corner, when things get bunched up, it's kind of not too surprising. But speaking of surprising, time still hanging on, this time to HMG in his hunt back on for Gandhi. Times keeps finding himself in one battle after another. Unfortunately, the walls have been winning a few of them, but Time showing a lot of pace here. So can they keep it together and get another position here? I want to see them in the top 10 over the next 8 minutes. I know it's something that's possible out of this 21 car. And they really are putting the pressure on. That was a nice, taken corner here through the cobbles. They lose a little bit of time to HMG, but I think at this point, everyone's starting to figure out consistency is the only way to stand a chance in this race. Speaking of standing a chance, I wish I knew exactly which racer I was looking at on the live timings board. I don't know which one CRA would be. Marcus. No, it wouldn't be Marcus McCart. Huh, interesting. I'll have to figure that out. They're in pits. So maybe it's Speed Bump? I don't know why it would be Speed Bump. I don't know. I digress. Right now, Time still trying to push. HMG a little bit further up has now kind of caught a little bit, or has provided a little bit of a tow to Lumeo, who is 1.1 laps to make up to Falcon ahead. We'll see what they're able to do with that. Speed Bump, though, did have to take a little bit of a trip through the pit lane, it seems. So they've got a 1.2 second gap to left sync handle in front. It looks like they took a legitimate pit to repair something, maybe even to switch out the tires. And we'll see how that helps them. I'm going to say it was a legitimate pit to switch out tires because it kind of tracks the amount of time they lost overall. And yep, they didn't lose any position. So that is the true gap between them, 0.7 seconds now. And we'll see what that does. I mean, Speed might have calculated this correctly with where he was, 6 minutes and 50 seconds remaining on fresh tires. I think he can close the 2.5 seconds to Bot Lando and get back on that podium. At that point, he did have 10 seconds to clutch rust, but he wasn't having a consistent laps himself because of that tire wear, I would imagine, and from a couple of spins. Oop, a little bit of rubbing, but both racers managed to parry on through with some speed. Speed himself is going to be the one to start the charge for the podium. He's now got 2 seconds to close and 6 minutes remaining to do so. We'll jump a little bit further back, though, because it looks like we got some side-by-side action heading into the roundabout. Is Scrub going to go for the dive? He is not. Scrub's going to let Tater go by, so Tater moving up the ranks. Time, unfortunately, falling a little bit further back as we see some chaos between maybe Mr. Ho and Beres. Now, the two of them do seem to be relatively friendly from what we can tell, so I don't think there's any bad blood between the racers. They've also been doing a good job of staying mostly out of the way of some of these big chaotic moments. Obviously, a wall spin is a wall spin. There's not a lot you can do in those scenarios. But aside from those unfortunate moments, they have been leaving the space for these guys to battle things out up front. I am taking a look at Deadly Daniel's gap, but also Speed Bump has already closed it down to 0.8 seconds on Bot Lando. One misfortunate moment between them, but right now there's going to be a big spin. Can they all avoid it? Daniel, being the only one to, will take the position on Gandhi and now has 10 seconds to close over the next 5 minutes to Brett Anderson ahead, who will probably start to battle left sink handle at this point. Brett's last lap was only 3/10 ahead, but that's a solid 3/10. Looks like there's a little bit of company in this battle between Speed Bump and Bot Lando. Looks like whatever the car is, though, they're going to take things real wide and kind of allow these two to fight. And that little draft, oh, I was going to say helps Speed Bump out tremendously, but maybe gets them a little bit too close as they're in a rough spot. Oh, and that is going to be true chaos. It's a blind part of the corner. I don't know how many racers are going to know what's going on, but it looks like they are able to get things through. That is certainly going to shake things up in the ranks. Brett Anderson now with a huge chance to catch up to at least P4, unless Sink Handle finds themselves in the podium spot following all of that. About 11 seconds ahead of Speed Bump and counting, as Speed has a little bit of a spin, causing Deadly Daniel to get an advantage. So that pit stop advantage that we saw earlier, gone now, as left sink handle has a crash trying to avoid Facon Lee, who had a crash of their own. So now that P3 spot goes right back to Bot Lando, who Speed Bump worked hard to take it away from, but this time Bot Lando's got Brett behind them and a whole bunch of traffic in front. So not going to be an easy one for Brett to take away, given the situation ahead. But Bot Lando is going to desperately try and hold on to it no matter what. We see HMG and Gandhi having a little side-by-side action of their own. It's like HMG and Gandhi having a little bit of a collision of their own as we see them sliding down the ranks a little bit, letting Speed Bump carry through into P8. Deadly Daniel now 0.4 seconds away from less sync behind, but Brett Anderson closing on Bot Lando. We don't want to miss the podium battle this close to the end. Speed Bump, though, with another big spin. We'll see where they end up, and they are going to go to pits at this stage. And I'm assuming wait things out. Oh, they will head back out and try and at least get a decent position for the reverse grid race 2. So that creates some interesting gaps on the live timings board, just as they try and figure out where everybody is following the pits. Time holding on to that P15 spot for now. It doesn't look like they're going to have a chance to get into the top 10 at this stage, even with the misfortune that was suffered ahead. but you never know. Things could still shake up. The timing could still be catching up. But speaking of catching up, Brett Anderson getting in close to Lando in front. That little bone sticking out of his wheel, really giving him the advantage on the long straightaway. I'm going to say it just adds extra dynamics, extra horsepower, the whole nine. That's all there is to it, as he is hammering through and not making it easy. Clutch Russ, it looks like, goes to the pits. A big collision, it looks like, with Criminal. I'm not entirely positive which one that is. They have not showed up on our live timings board. Unless that's who's driving as Mr. Ho. I'm going to say that was Mr. Ho. So Mr. Ho gets into a little bit of a collision there. Ooh, and it looks like Lando has a little bit of a spin as well. Now falls back a little bit further to P6. So a minute and 12 seconds remaining. This is going to be a huge four-way battle for the final podium position. Lando, Deadly Daniel, Les Sinkhandel, and Brett Anderson, all well within striking range. Time has already moved up 2 positions to P13 and has a chance at P12. So definitely coming in clutch. Gandhi in the back looking for a move on Tater. Everybody trying to find their way through here in the final moments of the track. Jump Raven in a very comfortable position. 50 seconds, a full lap ahead of P2, but nobody else is safe. Everybody going to be hammering through the best they can to try and prove they are the fastest car on the grid. Lando with a little bit of a late break. That's going to make the tires a little hot and hard to keep up with that battle ahead. Judging by where Jump Raven is, this could be the final opportunity. They'll have to make something happen over these next 2 corners, or hope something happens to the guys ahead. A little running with the wall, though, that's going to make things very difficult for Lando. So we'll jump forward for just a minute and see if Deadly Daniel is going to be the one to make a difference here in the final corners. It's going to be very close. Can Jump Raven get across the line? He will not. So this is the last lap of the event. Deadly Daniel powering through the final corner. There's going to be a car in front, though, and that lap traffic is enough, I think, between that and the inside line. Deadly Daniel not able to get ahead of Left Sinkhandel through the start-finish straight, and that will put an end to their battle. But speaking of battles, we've got one more. It's the man, the legend himself, Time. He's got a small gap to Mad Max in front. And can he make something happen? It all comes down to these final few corners heading into the cobbles. We've seen it before with Deadly Daniel. He had the opportunity, but it's the outside line that proves strong. And it's the outside line that proves strong once more. There he goes. Time working his way to the line to lock in P12 with a last corner pass on Mad Max. We've got one racer left on the track, Arong 45, who finishes us off strong. One hell of a race, but only 16 souls brave enough to make it through to the end. And what a tremendous finish. Brett Anderson able to walk away with P3, which, following the misfortune they had up front, definitely a earned one and a hard-fought battle to get back to that point. That was absolutely exhilarating. I'm very happy with how that one turned out. Obviously, there was a lot of carnage throughout, not just up front. Again, predictable carnage, things that some of these racers in our more, like, during the seasons when we're doing the leagues and stuff, those racers tend to actually not have as many issues, we'll say, with that, just because they're more heads around a swivel. They're more aware of who's in what corners and that kind of a thing. But when you get these fun events, these big 3,000 member specialty giveaway, yada yada yada, that's when we let everybody have a little bit of fun. And the chaos is what makes it fun. So for all of you purists watching this, we do have proper seasons where the chaos does not hit these levels by any means. you are welcome to join those. But you're going to want to check these out too. Speaking of something on a more serious note, we do have, again, our GT3 and MX5 multi-class event to wrap up this week of celebration. So that's going to be on Friday at Watkins Glen. I say more serious just because those cars are a little bit harder on that track to really cause crazy chaos with, but you know us. I'm sure we'll make something happen. So, reminder for those who haven't really watched our events before, or even those who aren't as familiar, we are going to be doing a reverse grid here. So there is 2 races. This countdown is going to be lining up for another 20-minute race. So these guys are not done just yet. I wouldn't make them do all that practice and a qualifying session for nothing. We do sometimes do 45-minute events, but we figured for the giveaway, having 2 races would give people a few more chances together. So thought that would be nice. But I digress. It is time to start the event, as we've got 30 seconds to go through the grid. So we're going to try and do it quick. But we've got Facon, followed by Aaron, HMG, Time, Scrub, Allen, Tough Racer, Gandhi, Tater, Botlando, Deadly Daniel, Left Sync Handle, Brett Anderson, Clutch for Us, Jump Raven, and all the way in the back there, looks like we've got 2 new joiners in Fede and Quantum SHD. So hopefully those 2 know what they're in for, because this is one hell of a track, one hell of a combination, and one hell of a race left to go. Lights are on, and we head into turn 1. Looks like no false starts given this time around, so that is major progress. Working our way into turn 1, and it looks like everybody gets through clean, but this is the big section. This is where it all went wrong last time. What are we going to do here today? Looks like maybe not even make it into that point, as we have chaos everywhere. Trying to keep an eye on as much of it as we can, as we got 1 racer flipped over, going to be having to head to pits already. Is that 2? That's going to be 2, as we've got a racer who has sunk their way into the floor. So 3 racers make their way into the pits following all the chaos of the first 2 corners. Deadly Daniel, though, looking for a way through Alan Montes as the whole grid powers through behind. These guys don't want to lose too much time to each other, because they're going to lead to some interesting moments. A 3 wide heading into the cobbles, and they managed to get through cleanly. So that is impressive by all parties involved. Very well done, as they managed to keep racing. Deadly Daniel taking that tight inside line, though, is going to open up the opportunity for 1 more of those into turn 1. And holy cow. So Quantum is definitely cheating. We're going to have to get rid of them real quick. And maybe we'll take a look at the friend there as well at some point. But that was something else. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to do something like that, maybe don't do it as obviously. But Jump Raven now looking for his chance at Brett Anderson in front. Looks like Scrub Racer may have just gotten passed by Tough, or Scrub may have been gotten passed by Tough Racer. It's hard not to add that to someone else's name when I'm looking at it for some reason. We also have Botlando fighting with Aaron K a little bit further down the grid, as we see Fede 182 in the pits. So if they head out onto the track, obviously we will take a look there and see, as they did join with Quantum, so obviously we want to take a look and see exactly what it is they have going on, just in case. Right now, HMG, though, working his way around the roundabout, trying to stick with Alan Montes. It looked like he was getting pretty close, and he does get that acceleration back to keep things moving. HMG doing a tremendous job of powering through the ranks here. Ooh, as we had a little bit of a spin there, so we see, I think that was left sink handle, take things wide through the wide out. And that'll give these guys a few more positions. We're now dropped down to a 15-person grid for race 2, so a little bit easier for guys to get closer and closer to that top 10, but looks like nobody's going to be giving up any positions easily here today. Brett Anderson may have had a little bit of a spin, drops him down into P7 because of how tight this grid is together. We'll see if Deadly Daniel's able to make something happen on Scrub. That 2/10 gap is going to be one they're interested in closing, but we'll see just how it goes over the course of the next two. But looked like Deadly Daniel's able to hang on. That was a very wide turn. I wasn't sure where they would finish out, and it looks like Scrub not giving up on that one too easily. But Daniel will hang on into turn 1, and that is going to be a solid spot to be in heading into the 15-minute mark. But you do see that grid starting to spread out a little bit on the map. I'm assuming that'll be because of collisions here and there, and the more that it spreads out, the more chaos the lead cars can get caught up in, and the closer we're going to see some of these battles start to get. Looks like left sink handle, though, is going to take that pass on time relatively easily and start the march towards HMG. They've got a 2-second gap to work on there. HMG starting to get within the 1-second marker to Gandhi in front. Tough Racer, as we tune in with a tough line into the final straightaway, so they're going to have to work on consistency here in these next 15 minutes. Also going to jump on over to HMG, or sorry, to Gandhi, who's roughly a second away from Aaron K4's drive. Oh! And it looks like Gandhi has a big collision with Bot Lando, I think, who just had a big spin of his own. Bot Lando now falling down to P10, trying to get closer to time, a little bit further in front. Tough Racer does manage to get past Scrub, as it seems both of those guys did fall behind Deadly Daniel at some point. I think we're a little bit distracted by oh, actually no, we did watch that on the broadcast a little bit earlier. So yeah, I'm distracted. There's too much going on here in these 14 minutes. So now it's just the part where the fun begins. We can see where some of the real chaos and packs will form. Right now, I don't see any usual suspects, so I think we're going to have a clean shot to watch this battle for a moment or two before the real grouping starts back up again. As Brett Anderson gets past Scrub 127 on his climb back up to the podium. He's working his way now to Tough Racer with a second to go, but he does have a much faster personal best in the bag, so we'll see what he can turn out here over the next few laps, as he's got a massive gap to go all the way up to P1. So I think Jump Raven may have had a little bit of a collision, as he ends up only 2.6 seconds away from Deadly Daniel. Oh, and Tough Racer with a bit of a wiggle manages to hang on, but that will be enough for Brett Anderson to get by and start his charge up to the podium hunt. So that will be the interesting moment for now. Let's jump over to P12, as I think we've got a little bit of lapping action here by, looks like Quantum SHD, who is back in on the server somehow. Interesting. All right, and we have a lot of late joiners and everything like that, so things are definitely getting interesting here in the late moments of the race. I don't see any tickets opened or anything like that, so I'm going to assume the majority of these guys are actual true newcomers, so we definitely don't want them interfering too much with the chaos going on. I think these guys have enough of it at hand. Jump Raven, though, making a nice clean pass on Deadly Daniel. Jump might have had another spin, because it looks like that 5-second gap closed up somewhere. But Deadly Daniel's not going to be an easy one for them to get past. We'll see exactly what happens here over these next few moments as Daniel looking to get by. He's very much pushing the pace. He's going to be within that draft by the looks of things on this back straight. If he can keep there, doesn't look like he's interested in taking the draft though, so might be okay. Oh, and just like that, Jump Raven has a little bit of a collision with the wall. That's going to be borderline deadly for his race as he gets back on the men. Brett Anderson running with a wall of his own and now puts himself into P5 as Jump Raven with a chance going to P4. We'll jump back a little bit as we see a collision with the wall there from looks like Quantum. I think those tires are just getting a little bit hot in that cobble section. Doesn't really give you a chance to cool things down. As we see Lando in the tow of a large group here, heading up to Time, who is well within that top 10. I know this broadcast has been a little bit more spaced, but that's just because like I said, there's a little bit more going on at the moment. Just trying to keep our eye on a few things. We see Porcupine and Quantum having a little fight in the back as Lando now joining a 4-man mix here. Aaron Dink and Time in here trying to get by. I think that's Brett Anderson, just judging by the little white spot sticking out as we see contact between I think it was Parky and Time. Parky just trying to get by as Lando going to be the lone survivor of that battle, now walking away relatively comfortably in P8. Has 7.5 seconds to make up over the course of 10 minutes. Not a bad spot to be. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be complaining, so I can't imagine they are. Gonna jump a little bit further back to Tai Dylon and see exactly how they are doing. Right now, Time really pushing their way through the best that they can. Looks like they've dropped to P13 with a little bit of misfortune. We'll chalk that up to broadcaster's curse because we're rooting for Time, so naturally that's when things are going to go wrong. Up ahead, though, it looks like a 2-man battle that might go in Time's favor as they're taking awkward lines with rough tires. Never an easy time to get through. See Porcupine causing a little bit of collisions here. We'll see if they're able to get moving or what exactly ends up going on. Just keeping an eye on some of the newcomer racers. I know we're here to check out the battles, but also want to make sure that the battles are going on safe-ish. As I can't tell if Parky is trying to hit somebody or just doesn't know the line. I guess the true test will be when another car is around them, as this is a pretty difficult combination to pick up on the fly. But wow, we've got chaos going on up front. We cannot ignore what's happening here, regardless of the antics happening there. There's a massive fight going on all the way up to P8. You can see a huge grid breaking out with 8 minutes remaining. So all these guys have found each other in a misfortune. All of them looks like all have a chance up to P7, have had roughly the same experiences as far as spins and incidents with the wall go. So now they all bunch up here. Time dropping back to Tater into P13. Tater looking to join a little bit, but probably doesn't want to help this 3-wide battle turn into 4. So they'll hang back into turn 1 and hope for a little bit more acceleration than the other guys out of it. Really pushing the bar here as they are just waiting for the opportunity to move forward. This is helping Aaron K stay ahead a little bit. That 1.5 seconds hasn't changed much, but neither has that 3.3 seconds to scrub ahead. So this grid might, or this pack might get a little bit tighter. Speaking of tighter, Oh, actually, that was Tater at the back. My mistake. So time has fallen back just a little from the antics at hand. Oh, as we see a little bit of contact, HMG and Aaron K, both racers are going to fall back now and let Tater, Botlando, and Allen work their way through. A bad corner from Botlando lets Tater through one more spot, now into P9. Both racers, though, hanging on to the top 10 hopes and dreams as we see lap traffic coming into play just a little bit as we make our way further and further around. Just a tricky spot to be in overall. I mean, these are tough cars to pick up at any point in the event. Looks like Tater, though, going to take up that inside line, might have the chance on Scrub now that they have been looking for. And that chance they will take, working their way through into P7, but not safe as there is a huge grid behind them. Scrub feeling the pressure from Alan Montes as he gets close within that bumper. HMG fighting a fight of his own as there's a new four-man pack a little bit further behind. We'll see what happens here with Alan and Scrub as Alan manages to pull alongside for the straightaway. It looks like the same thing might be happening a little bit further back with Aaron and HMG, as well as Botlando and Ty. But Botlando going to manage to get by. We have a little bit of contact with the wall from Scrub, and that'll give some breathing room. From HMG, and that'll give some breathing room here to these two to fight things out. But not much, as they barely make it past, I want to say that was Tater. We just see all sorts of movement up and down the live timings board. Again, very hard to keep up with all the changes in positions we see going on. Everybody taking whatever advantages they can get. We're jumping back now with this second grouping in the battle for P10. Everybody here just trying to get into the main points. Botlando doing a good job at trying to hold that inside lane, but will that give him the acceleration he needs to make moves down the back straight? It at least gives him a chance for a 3 wide, but he does look to be the odd man out. What will he make happen into the wide out? Looks like he's going to have to avoid a little bit of chaos, and just being the survivor is all it took there as he takes that P10 position with 4 minutes to go and a nice little comfortable cushion to the two behind. So probably feeling a little comfortable with where they are now. Tater getting in front by just a hair to Aaron in behind. That's going to be a very strong spot as Aaron shuffles a little bit into turn one, gives him some breathing room. So Tater now able to focus on that 5.6 second gap to all the guys ahead. HMG now in an interesting spot of his own as he's got a car who's a lap behind ahead, followed by the lead car, followed by a rival. Oh, as he is able to get by, looks like whatever the lapped car was in that moment, and work his way back towards the lead car and his rival. So 2.5 seconds to go to Alan Montes in the 73. 3 minutes remaining, not an impossible amount of time to make up, which, speaking of impossible amount of times to make up, we do have Brett Anderson currently with a force to go. I was going to say to try and catch Tougher Racer, but it looks like Tougher Racer goes a little bit wide and hits the pit entry. So that will give Brett Anderson the podium spot and is now on Jump Raven to get by, who's 3.9 seconds back. So that's a little bit more comfortable for Brett, I'd imagine. We also have HMG here looking to use traffic to his advantage and see if he can catch up to Allen. Gets very close to the bumper, and that will be enough to distract him. Allen heading into the wall now will hope to hold off the likes of Scrub, which he was not able to. He's got additional cars coming down, so he doesn't want to move just yet. And it is just an unfortunate time. He's got one more, but he's going to try and send it. And thankfully, that was the car of, I believe, Jump Raven. So, driver who is able enough to get around and keep moving. That drops Allen very far down the rankings into P12. Only a minute and 52 seconds left, so I don't know exactly what they'll be able to do to make that one up. Brett Anderson find themselves in a pretty strong position, though. Now only 1.2 seconds to go to Deadly Daniel ahead. Can he close that gap in the next, looks like only 2 laps, I would say, judging by where Clutch Russ is currently. So not a lot of time to make things happen. A few racers trying to find positions in these final moments. I do see Bot Lando looking for a move on Tater. We've got 3 guys going wide here, and Brett Anderson going to spin out and try and get moving before Jump comes around, but there he goes. That's going to be Jump by, and Brett Anderson will lose out on the podium position in the second to last lap. Not the way he was hoping to see that go. Tough Racer will have a chance to get by Brett. And we'll check in on that battle in just a moment, but Bot Lando still trying to creep his way a little bit closer or further into the top 10. He's just on the outskirts, or he's just on the edge of it now. He'll at least have the points, but he knows he wants a little bit more, and he's pushing hard to try and get there. Same goes for Brett Anderson and Alan Montes, who just picks up the position on Aaron 4K, a little bit further behind Bot Lando. Oh, and suffers a little bit of a spin. So Allen having another misfortunate moment, going to fall back a little bit further down, and this time ends up in P12 as we tune into a little bit of bumper cars there. Tougher Racer and Brett coming into contact as Brett gets by into P4. Tougher sitting in P5 now, and that will be the end of their race, I believe. Or no, they'll have one more lap to go for that fight, so hopefully Tougher will be able to get moving and try and catch back up. Lando, on the other hand, he's only got this lap to make it happen. Looks like the lead car is ahead of them, so this is the true final chance, and that corner might be all that she wrote. Tater now sitting 1.2 seconds away with a very, very comfortable few corners left to go. All he's got to do is make it through clean, and it looks like they will. That'll be Bot Lando taking home P8 Tater taking home P8 and Bot Lando taking home P9. We'll jump over to Scrub as he crosses the line, try and catch up with a few others as Fat Con does. And then I believe we're going to jump in to Tougher Racer next. I don't even know who that was that kind of did. Left stick hand, it looks like opting not to finish the lap, possibly, which could be an overall issue for them as they head into the pits. Aaron K45. I guess the points don't really matter for an event like this. It's like whose line is it anyway? But Aaron K5 looks to be the racer to send things home on the grid for us. Plenty of racers joined. Many of them did not make it to the end, but our survivors carry on strong. Aaron K45, the last one to bring us home to end race 2 of the 3,000 member event. Looks like we've got a little bit of chaos going on in the roundabout, so we'll see if Aaron's able to sneak in and join in for a little bit of these celebratory donuts. But to everybody watching, we obviously thank you guys for checking things out. You know, it's been a fun one, of course, to see. And well, see you guys for the